Good evening, everyone. I will call this meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. by formally recognizing the traditional keepers of this land, and specifically our neighbors of the Alderville First Nation with a formal territorial acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge the Municipality of Brighton is located on the Mississauga-Anishinaabeg territory and is the traditional territory of the Mississauga. The Council of the Municipality of Brighton respectfully acknowledges that the Mississauga Nation are the collective stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain their responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. I'll also advise that due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting will be held using various formats. Members of Council and some senior staff are present in Council chambers. Other meeting participants will be joining us electronically. The public is invited to join us by viewing this meeting live on the Municipality of Brighton YouTube channel. I will also note that once we proceed into closed session, the live YouTube stream will end for the duration of tonight's meeting. I would ask everyone present in chambers to please mute any cell phones or electronic devices. And with that, I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Anderson, that Council amend the March 1st, 2021 Council meeting agenda to add to the closed session Section 16 pursuant to the Ontario Municipal Act 2001 as amended, subsection 239(2)(b), personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, specifically staff council interactions, and the CAO employment agreement. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. And a motion moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman, that Council approve the March 1st, 2021 Council meeting agenda as amended. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The motion's carried. Members of Council, I'll ask if you have any pecuniary interests, and if so, please make your declaration and state the general nature thereof. And there are none noted. And I'll open the floor for announcements, and I know Councillor Bateman has an announcement this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know how many council meetings ago I had mentioned the equipment drive for hockey that we had going for the Indigenous communities. I had partnered with Project North, and they had put me onto former NHLer John Chabot. We couldn't deliver it due to the restrictions and the travel ban, but I want to thank Councillor LeBlanc for the use of the trailer and the white knuckle drive up to Ottawa. But I'm pleased to, we had quite a bit of equipment in there. They were very impressed. Mr. Chabot came down and he brought a gentleman and his son from the Indigenous community. And the one child that John had been working with, I'll probably mispronounce his name, but it's of note. It's Washajay Janot. He's 9 years old, and I can send that. That's a kid to watch. If he doesn't make the NHL, I'd be very surprised. There's a short CBC video on this young child that they've been working with up in the Indigenous communities, and it was phenomenal. But he was there to help load the equipment in the bus, and they were so thankful. So I just want to express my sincere thanks, because this was gathered on behalf of the Municipality of Brighton. And I didn't bring it today because I didn't want to get it wet or wrecked. I have tons of jerseys at home, and I had taken one of my Team Canada jerseys because John had played multiple times for Team Canada, and he has signed that to the people of Brighton. Thank you for your help, John Chabot. So I will leave it up to Mr. Castleman. We can pass it on to Jim Miller if you think the arena is a good spot for that. It's a gift from John and the Indigenous community to Brighton. So whenever you decide, I can deliver it to whoever. And just another note, we had talked about it on the interactive Zoom call that we had with Mr. Chabot with the kids. I had got the mayor's blessing, and we extended an invitation for Mr. Chabot because he has an NHL alumni team that is made up of former Indigenous players. And when we were speaking to him on the weekend, he's all in for coming down and bringing that team here to do an event in Brighton. So it'll all be based on where we are with COVID, but hopefully COVID permits, because I think that would be a tremendous event, not just to showcase Brighton, but to give more support to the Indigenous community. So I'll keep everybody posted as that rolls along.
Well, thank you for that, and thank you for your work getting that equipment gathered and up to the northern communities.
I just want to stress, I just facilitated it. I can't say enough about the residents of Brighton because they donated a tremendous amount of equipment. So all the kudos goes to the people that handed over the stuff. It was very impressive.
I'm sure we all look forward to seeing the jersey hanging in the arena at some point. So thank you. Any other announcements this evening? None, thank you. We'll move into adoption of the minutes with a motion moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that Council adopt the February 16th, 2021 Council meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? And there being none opposed, that's carried. And a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc, that Council adopt the February 23rd, 2021 Special Council meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? Councillor LeBlanc?
Yes, Your Chair. This is for the CAO. At the last meeting, we were given information that the pond was assumed in 2016. And so I went and drawn the minutes from 2016, and you said they used the word works. And I read the minutes of that entire thing, the bylaw that was amended, signed by the mayor at the time, the letter from Mr. Swan, the drawings that were presented by the Director of Public Works at the time.
Councillor LeBlanc, we're just discussing the February 23rd meeting minutes. If you have a concern with something in the report or something discussed, you should bring it forward as a notice of motion at the next meeting.
I will.
Okay, thank you. So back to discussion of the minutes of February 23rd. Is there any discussion on those? So all those in favor of accepting them as presented? Any opposed? The motion's carried. There's no statutory public meeting this evening, which takes us into delegations. Council will hear one delegation this evening. Council is advised this delegation may exceed the 10-minute time allotment moderately to provide information to members of council. It is noted that language, content, and conduct must remain respectful at all times. Council will be provided with an opportunity to ask questions of clarification from the delegation representative. Based on the information that they have presented, Council is reminded that this is not an opportunity to engage in debate with the delegate nor advance a public policy position. So our delegation is Paula Mason from the Physician Recruitment and Retention Coordinator of Docks by the Bay. Ms. Mason, you have the floor.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors, municipal staff.
Hang on for a second. You're not muted, but we can't hear you, Paula. Just give us 10 seconds to figure out our tech. Try now.
Good evening. Can you hear me now?
Mildly. Just hang on for a sec. Could you turn it up a little more? Try now, Paula.
How's that? Better? That's good.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. You have the floor. Go ahead.
Thank you. So good evening, Mr. Mayor, councillors, and municipal staff. It's a pleasure to be here again to give you an update on the 2020 calendar year Docks by the Bay Physician Recruitment Program. I believe I have the ability, or someone will give me the ability to share my screen. Is that correct?
You should. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, are you okay there?
Yeah, we can see it.
See the PowerPoint? Okay, great. We'll just start the slideshow and just walk you through this as quickly as I can. I'd like to start just with the recruitment activities that we carried out last year. With the career fairs, typically we attend 5 or 6 of those per year. Of course, last year, COVID threw a wrench in almost everything that most of us did. So you'll see that we did only attend one in-person career fair last year in February before we were hit with the lockdown and the restrictions. So the rest of the career fairs at the universities and such were canceled last year, and they have all switched to a virtual format this year. We've already attended one in January at the University of Ottawa, which was a virtual format that went quite well, and we have another upcoming in April. In terms of site visits, so that's where we have a doctor or potential doctor visiting the communities to have a look around. We tour them to the hospitals, to the clinics, to the doctor's offices, as well as sites of interest within the communities. We were able to do one in February, and we didn't see another one again until the summer. So once summer came, we opened back up and we were able to socially distanced get around some of these physicians, and you'll see we were able to have a few of them through the summer and into the fall. In terms of learners, we talk about our learners, our medical learners. So these are our medical students who are typically in 3rd or 4th year in a med school, or they are residents. So they're typically 1st or 2nd year residents in the final stages of their residency program. I should just mention too, this encaptures Quinte West and Brighton in terms of the numbers here. And we will see a comparison a little later on a year-by-year basis. This one running January to December. I can tell you that we did have, from these numbers, 10 of these numbers were actually in Brighton for their learning rotation. 4 were in Quinte West, and 17 were at the hospital specifically. So our numbers are slightly down from the learners visiting last year due to COVID again. Most of the universities pulled the medical students out once April came, and we were only allowed to have the residents throughout the summer and into the fall. So things have started to pick up quite well again in that area. So we will see an increase this year again, but last year did drop off slightly. In terms of doctors recruited, we did recruit 5 physicians into the community of Quinte West and Brighton, and one in particular, as you are all aware, Dr. Angela Lambrakos, who started at your Brighton Health Sciences Center in September. I think I've showed you this before. This is a prospect chart of the number of prospects that I'm actually working with or have contact with. These range from high school students who've expressed interest in becoming a doctor one day, to undergraduate students who plan to apply to medical school, 4 years worth of students already in their medical school career, the 2 or 3 years of residency. There are some residents that will take a 3rd year, and if they're doing a specialty, they will actually take a 4th and 5th year. We also have international medical grads. So these are students who have graduated from a medical school outside of Canada. And then we also have existing physicians. So these are all people that are being tracked, that receive our newsletter on a regular basis, and that we are in contact with on a somewhat regular basis. And this is a living, breathing document, so this can change on a daily basis as well, depending on, a new lead that I may get, or somebody that might fall off if they all of a sudden say, I've decided I'm not going to be a doctor, or yeah, I'm a doctor, but I took a job in another community. So it does change on a regular basis. This is medical learners that we spoke about earlier. Earlier, I showed you a snapshot of last calendar year. This is a fiscal year, so they changed things up and they're now reporting on a fiscal basis. So you can see the difference between 2018-19 and 2019-20. We had a nice increase. 2020-21, we still have 4 months to go, and I do expect that we will reach close to probably 35 to 38 medical learners in 2020-21. Not quite as many as we would have had, like I said, if COVID hadn't have struck us down last summer and the universities pulled their students back. But you can see a nice increase the more we promote our communities and the more we reach out to these learners, the more they want to come here and try us out. This is our retention calendar. So just as important, we've talked in the past, as important as recruitment is, retention's just as important. We want to keep those doctors that we get. We want to keep them here, the doctors that we have. We want to keep them happy. We put on different social events as we can, again, as the situation allows. We were able to attend a Sens game in Belleville last January, and I believe the mayor and Councillor Bateman dropped by to see us at that event. We were able to put on a barbecue in the summer, socially distancing barbecue, and we had several of the residents that were in town drop by for that. We weren't able to do our traditional Christmas get-together, but we'll look forward hopefully this year to be able to do a few more social events to bring these doctors together and try and engage them and help them, feel more like a community. We provided some extra recognition to them this year. All of the family doctors in Quinte West and Brighton were given gift cards a couple times during the year, typically donated by some of our restaurants and businesses in town. A couple of them we did purchase with our program funds, but we just wanted some recognition to let them know that, they were doing a great job, and we really appreciated everything they were doing during these difficult times. We did a Doctor's Day video in May, which you'll recall that we brought greetings from the mayors, including Mayor Ostrander. And we also presented a lab coat to the physicians as well, and I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. At Christmas, we also recognized them again with some gift certificates and a nice bottle of wine. So just trying to keep them engaged and keep them positive and keep them feeling good and letting them know that we haven't forgotten about them. Tribute cards, so we recognize their birthdays or anniversaries or babies or any sort of sympathy events that would require a greeting going out. We do send out greetings. We made a note as well. We received a nomination for a Quinte Business Achievement Award back in the summer, late summer, early fall. In the not-for-profit category, we were nominated. There's just a quick picture of us at the Belleville Senators game. Must have taken that after the mayor left. A couple of the current doctors that we have there, as well as a couple prospective doctors that visited with us. This was the Doctor's Day appreciation video. I'm not going to take the time to show it because we did show it. I'm sure that you saw it back in May. So here's some of the things that we did give out. The lab coat that I mentioned, we purchased lab coats for all of our doctors. And so if you're ever visiting one of your doctors in Brighton, then hopefully you'll see them wearing this lovely lab coat. They were quite appreciative. We purchased a bottle of wine for them at Christmas. This was one of the wineries in Niagara did a special label, said much obliged, and it had the doctor on the front in the scrubs. So we thought that was kind of appropriate. At Christmas time, this was given to the residents that are working out of the Belleville Queens Family Residency Program. We gave them a little bag with a couple little cookies that were made and some Docks by the Bay swag. So again, just a few things to let them know that we're thinking about them. In terms of marketing, different activities that we carried out through the year, our newsletter. We're currently sending our newsletter to just over 800 people now. Most of them students and residents that we've met at the different events. So, and we have over 50% open rate on our newsletter, which is very high for the healthcare industry. Typically, the average is around 38%. So we get good uptake on our newsletter. We have a Talk with a Doc article that we've done 3 times. We started out hoping to kind of do it on a monthly basis last spring, but then again with COVID, we just found we couldn't be asking too much extra of our physicians when they were trying to balance their virtual practices. So we have run 3 articles. You've probably seen them. We do send them to the Northumberland paper and the Quinte West papers. So we've done an article with one doc on COVID in April. In May, we did mental health. And then in November, we did vaccinations. So we're looking to get another one of those up and going in the next month or so as well. We had a new website created. So in September, we unveiled our new website, and hopefully you've had a chance to look at that. If you haven't, I would encourage you to. It's got some great photos of Quinte West and Brighton and lots of great information there. Video. We started working on a video last July, and I know that you saw it at one of your more recent meetings, and hope you were pleased with that. It was a lot of work, and it was difficult to key up all the doctors, but we really had some great uptake from Dr. Cohen and Dr. Strutz in Brighton in helping us with that. So we were quite pleased with how that turned out, and we're really looking forward to being able to share that. There's just a screenshot of what our new website looks like on the homepage if you haven't had a chance to see it. And you have all seen the video, so I'm not going to take the 5 minutes and 42 seconds to show you that. This is just some additional activities and reminders of things that we're doing on a regular basis. One is working with physicians who are about to retire or planning their retirement. So we do have a couple of those, both in Trenton and Brighton, where I am working closely, hoping to find a replacement for those retiring physicians. We continue to have a relationship with partnership with Canadian Forces Military Family Services. So this is where we work with them. They maintain a list of military family members who don't have a physician, and we try to match up those family members with a local physician. And to date, we've matched almost 250 family members with a physician. And that's really important because these people that are coming into the community with the military, the serving member gets their health care on the base, but the family members are required to look elsewhere into the community. And because they're only here for 2, 3, 4 years at the most, it's often difficult for them to find a doctor when we do have such wait lists. So we do make an extra effort to try and match up these folks when we can. We also continue a relationship with Quinte Healthcare just to ensure that we have good coverage in our emergency room and on our hospitalist inpatient floor. So while I don't recruit those specialist roles directly, I am in close contact with my colleague at Quinte Healthcare who does the recruitment of those roles. And then anytime I come across, a student or a resident or a physician that's interested in something other than family medicine or a combination of family medicine and another specialty, I can make sure that they are taken care of and can participate in the Quinte Healthcare career process. We also work to assist the new physicians with office setup, and this can include helping them with support staff, rostering patients, that sort of thing. Sometimes they need a bit of a hand to get set up, so we can provide them some assistance that way. As well, spousal employment support. So often we'll reach out to our recruitment committee if we have a potential physician who has a spouse coming along that needs a hand in making some contacts in the community within their field. So we've had good uptake on that as well, where we were able not very recently to get one of our new physicians who actually ended up being an ER physician, but we were able to get his wife some work with Scotia McLeod, so that's been handy too. Looking forward into 2021, currently I'm working with 6 prospective physicians, 3 residents who graduate in June, and I currently have 2 retiring physicians who I'm working to try and find coverage for their patients. We're planning a virtual Med School 101 information session. So this was something we did in 2019. June of 2019, we ran a Med School 101, and that was an event for high school students that thought they might be interested in medicine. So we did a panel discussion with several med students, several residents, and several practicing docs, and we just invited all the local high school students that were interested to come in and meet these people and get to ask questions about what the process is really like on getting into medical school and what it's really like to be a doctor. So we're planning to do that again this later this spring, early summer, in a virtual format. In Quinte West, we continue to work with several doctors groups and stakeholders on new space for family physicians, because we are running out of space for our family docs in Quinte West. In Brighton, we're okay so far here. We still have a couple pods available in your health sciences center, so we're thankful for that. I mentioned as well, we'll be attending all of the university career days, which will be virtual. And we are developing some incremental advertising opportunities for our physician opportunities. We've put in for a grant from Trenval for some extra funds this year that would be allotted towards advertising. And we do have so far one new doctor that is starting in Quinte West in the fall of 2021. So that's sort of what we have on the horizon coming up this year. And with that is the end of the formal presentation. But as the mayor mentioned, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them at this time.
So I'll open the floor to members of council for questions of clarification. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Paula, for the update. You mentioned once or twice the recruitment committee. Is there municipal representation on your recruitment committee?
Yes, there is. Councillor Anderson is a member of our committee, and we do have Quinte West represented as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. We hear a lot of concern in Brighton. We have a lot of people who are without a doctor, and they're always asking what we're doing. So I appreciate having a presentation. I guess two questions is, do we have some prospects in the horizon for Brighton? And also, if you get doctors in Trenton, will they take any Brighton patients that you know of? Those are two things that often come up.
Okay. So number one, do we have any prospects in Brighton? We have prospects across the board. Two of them have, well, one for sure has been there twice now to Brighton and had a good look around. She is from the GTA area, and she did decide over the winter that she didn't want to make a decision on her relocation. So she is still sitting very closely on our radar with the hopes that she may choose to relocate this spring. Again, she hasn't made a firm decision that it be Brighton or Trenton, but in the back of my mind, she has made the 2 visits to Brighton versus 1 to Trenton. So, and again, the fact that we have those 2 open spaces in the Health Science Center in Brighton right now is very much an asset, because somebody that wants to open in Trenton right now, we are hard pressed to find them office space. So for sure that one, I think is a good prospect at this point. Also, we have another physician that just came back onto the radar from a couple of years ago. She has also been introduced to the Brighton idea just most recently as of last week, and has been put in touch with Wendy Parker for a further conversation. So I would say that that those 2 are probably our strongest candidates at this point. Second part of your question was a doctor that opens in Trenton, can they take Brighton patients? Typically, the ministry dictates that if your physical practice address is in one community, that the majority, and I'm not sure the percentage, I believe it to be between 80 and 90% of your patients must come from that community. Typically, we try to encourage the doctor to take their full roster from the community that they're in, especially if they've been someone that has signed the financial or medical services agreement. So if the city of, or the municipality of Brighton has paid someone the financial agreement funds, then they deserve to have 100% of that doctor's patients in their community. Same in Quinte West, but again, it just depends. It just depends on what the ministry says at the time. It depends on the physician themselves. And again, it depends on the municipality having paid, for that physician.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Paula. Good presentation. Yeah, our meetings are very, I sit on that committee, and it's a great committee. It's made up of quite a large number of folks. There's a couple from Brighton as well as Quinte West, including the mayor of Quinte West, and our mayor has been to a couple of meetings lately. So there's hard work being done. And I think the big question from people though is who decides the pay, who's going to get the patient? Which doctor is going to choose me as a patient? And why do they choose me, or why do they not choose me? I hear this all the time, and I know we've discussed it before, Paula, and I think it's a good question by people. Doctors don't necessarily want as large what do you call it, roster as they used to have. I remember a couple of Brighton doctors had more on their agenda than we had people in Brighton, but I don't think that happens anymore. I think and a lot of these doctors are brand new and they're just fresh out of school but they're highly educated, let's put it that way. But they can't take on, I don't think they want to or can't take on the large numbers that are out there. So I'm going to add one more little thing to this statement. And the other thing that residents don't understand is when they call and say, I've been waiting for 2 years or 3 years on this list, and they haven't heard anything, and they don't get answers sometimes, and they don't get a reply on what is happening. So it falls back on you and it falls back on us all the time because we hear it all the time. When am I going to hear about a doctor? And I've been on that list and I've seen other people get doctors and I haven't. So there's a lot of questions there, but I thought I'd just throw it out there tonight because those are questions I'm getting every day. And I think a number of us are. And I don't have the answers necessarily all the time either. So.
I think to answer the first part of that question, Ron, that you mentioned is how do these doctors pick their patients? For the most part, we encourage them not to pick their patients per se, but rather to use the Healthcare Connect waitlist, because that's what we're telling the residents. We're telling them to make sure they're on the list. So we're telling the doctors, please use the list. Please let them choose the patients for you. They're not obligated, like nobody's obligated to be on the Healthcare Connect list and no doctor's obligated to use the Healthcare Connect list, but it does provide for a balanced roster. So what they do with that is Healthcare Connect attempts to give the doctor, X number of young patients, infants and young children, X number of young families, X number of, baby boomers, X number of seniors. So they try to balance the roster off so they don't have all seniors with healthcare, a lot of healthcare problems that are going to take up a lot more time. They do try to balance it out. And the way that my understanding is the way that Healthcare Connect assigns them to a physician is also based on the different needs that the patient has. Because when you register with Healthcare Connect, you are required to do quite a screening process with them, outlining the different medical conditions you have. So those that do have higher priority medical conditions may be assigned a doctor before somebody else that's been on there a lot longer. So it's like triage at the hospital. Just because you get there first doesn't mean you're going to see the doctor first. It depends on what you've got going on in terms of your care and the care that you need. And that's why we also encourage people, if you've been on Healthcare Connect for 3 or 4 years or whatever the time may be, if your health changes, call back and let them know. If all of a sudden you have a new cancer diagnosis or something, severe like that, you need to let them know, because that will change the order in which you are assigned to a doctor. So hopefully that helps that a little bit. Again, it's, it is a government organization. They are doing the best they can. Current numbers this morning, I believe, we are now under 900 patients in Brighton that are unattached without a doctor. I think we're about 895 now. So not, that number's coming down, but it's coming down slowly because we're having to replace those that have left.
Thank you, Paula. Any further comments or questions? Councillor LeBlanc?
Thank you to Your Honor, Paula. Are you also looking at recruiting nurse practitioners, or is that the doctors that recruit them?
Yes. That's not part of our role. So yes, so typically if there was a nurse practitioner needed or wanted, the doctor would be hiring them, or the family health team would be hiring them, or the hospital would be hiring them.
Thank you. Councillor Rowley?
Thank you, Mayor. Just one question, Paula, regarding family health teams. Is that what most of the new physicians or any physicians coming here, is that kind of the model that they're looking for? Or are there still some interested in what we would have called private practice at some point?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the model that they're looking for. The new young grads, that's the model they're taught in medical school nowadays. So that is the model that they're looking for. It affords them a more balanced lifestyle by working in a group practice like that. The only time we might see somebody come through that would take a private practice would be maybe an existing physician who's been practicing for quite some time in another location on their own. They may come into the community and say, hey, no, I'm fine on my own. I'm gonna open my practice and hang up my shingle and away I go. But most of the new 99.9% of the new grads want to be in a group situation.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Paula. May I ask one more question? This would be to the CAO regarding physician recruitment here, as far as monies that we would have in the bank if we were to invite a potential physician this year. Are we financially set for that?
Mr. Castleman?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I think I'll do a bit of a tag team here. Do we have a bit of a reserve set aside for physician recruitment? The answer is absolutely. And I think that whether it's adequate enough to deal with one or two docs, I'll defer to the treasurer. The bottom line is this is an important item for the municipality, and if approached by Paula and her team, I'm sure that council would turn their mind to trying to attract a doctor to Brighton.
Does that answer your question, or do you want more specifics?
No, I'm okay with that. Just knowing that we're prepared. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Just further to that, I know there's a lot of very concerned citizens, and I get it. I was without a doctor for a number of years as well. We have a lot of people who are in a situation where they're not comfortable being without a doctor, and I understand that. And sometimes you hear that people don't understand, I guess, what we're doing. So we have absolutely paid to bring doctors here in the past, and we're prepared to do that again. And I just kind of want to reiterate, maybe the CAO or the treasurer can pipe in that. Do we know how many doctors we have paid to bring here or in the past? I'm just looking to show that we have a bit of a history, that we are working on this and we continue to work on this. I know it's short notice, sorry.
Mr. Castleman?
So through you, Mr. Chair, once again, we'll do a bit of a tag team. Having said that, I've not been here all that long, but certainly have dug into the file over the course of the last couple of years. My recollection is we've been active with 5 or 6 students or so, but I'll defer to the treasurer, who's been with the municipality a few more months.
Ms. Whitfield?
Just going off the top of my head, we had 5 paid, 2 that refunded us the money, which we used for another type of physician agreement. And the rest of that money is back in the reserve.
Go ahead. As a follow-up.
As a follow-up, Linda, do you know how much off the top of your head we have in reserve? If you don't, it's okay.
I don't know off the top of my head.
I'm sure the Director of Finance will be pleased to send us an email with that information tomorrow morning. Any other questions for the physician recruiter, since that's really where we should be focusing our questions at the moment? There being none, thank you very much, Paula, for your presentation. We appreciate being kept up to date. As you've noted, I'm sure from the questions, there is plenty of interest in our community. Everyone's waiting for you to make your next announcement, including this guy right here. So with that, I will read a motion, and I look forward to our next phone call when you're asking me to come welcome a new doctor to Brighton. And with that, I have a motion moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson, that Council receive the presentation from Paula Mason, Physician Recruitment and Retention Coordinator, Docks by the Bay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that's carried. With our thanks, Paula.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
And that takes us into citizens' comments. Are we aware of anyone who was looking to come forward for citizens' comments, Madam Clerk? Ms. Lambert, do you see anyone waiting to come in? Thank you. That takes us into staff reports. Our first staff report is with regard to the 2020 Council and Committee remuneration. Ms. Whitfield, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
No, I do not.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Anderson, that Council receive the 2020 Council and Committee remuneration report as information. Is there any discussion? Councillor Rowley?
Thank you, Mayor. I do have one question, Linda, regarding the Economic Development Committee. So it's kind of the last committee that you have listed. I'm not going to bring up the name at this stage, but our Economic Development Committee has only had 2 meetings, and this name is not familiar to me. So, and we haven't had an Economic Development Committee. So I'm just curious as to where that fell in, how that fell in.
That person is a citizen representative at the Quinte Economic Development Commission. That's why it's falling under economic development.
Thank you very much
You're
for
welcome.
that.
Any further questions? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that's carried. Our next report is with regard to advertising in a magazine. Ms. Whitfield, we've read this report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
No, I do not.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that Council support the advertisement in the National Wall of Remembrance magazine and the Military Service Recognition Book for 2021. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Next report is the Municipality of Brighton Health and Safety Annual Endorsement. Mr. Miller, do you have anything to, we've read the report, obviously. Do you have anything to add or highlight, sir?
I do not at this time.
Thank
I
you.
have no report.
Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc. The council receives the report from the Director of Parks and Recreation and approves the 2021 Workplace Health and Safety Policy Statement and Responsibilities as attached. Is there any discussion? Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. Although this health and safety report specifically deals only with staff, do we also have any kind of a policy that would deal with members of the public and other boards that the municipality looks after?
Could you say that last part again?
We have a health and safety committee here for employees of the municipality. Do we have policy that would cover the health and safety of our residents and other members of other boards or other boards that I'm speaking specifically of the library board. There's some concerns there. I think maybe our fire chief has met with the CEO of the library. I was just wondering, do we have any policy under that? As there been a few concerns discussed, but then I would wait to hear that.
I would have to defer that to staff. Mr. Castleman. I see that Ms. Whitfield's ready to answer that question. If you want to defer.
Then I'm going to defer to her.
I thought you might. Ms. Whitfield.
Yes, so there is a member of the library board or a staff member of the library board that actually sits on our joint health and safety committee. And so they are covered under our joint health and safety.
So it's joint health and safety, which means not only staff inclusive, but also members of those boards or the public.
Just the library board.
Not just public.
Just the library board. Okay. Just one more question. Although Councillor Tadman's not here, we've had some concerns. Do we have any kind of agreement or memorandum of understanding regarding health and safety or specifically cleaning issues with the library? I'll just bring that. I know it's, maybe I should just quit rambling and deal with this later.
I would never say that, of course, but.
Well, I did. It's okay. I'm not offended.
Do we have a memorandum of understanding? I think that's a fairly simple question with regard to health and safety or cleaning of the library. I think we offer cleaning in the library because it's our building, and that's part of our understanding of their use of our building. But Go ahead, Ms. Whitfield.
Yes, so the library does have space and services in our building, and we do the general cleaning of the library through our staff member. But there have been a couple of cases where we've had to bring in external cleaners because it's beyond the scope of what our staff can deal with. And I believe that that's what's being addressed with our CEO of the library.
Discussed, addressed, maybe not, but yes, ongoing discussion.
So maybe
Yes.
we need to take this
Yes,
offline or at another meeting to be dealt with, because it sounds like it's more than what a corporate health and safety policy statement might have
right.
to do.
But I was just wondering if it would be highlighted anywhere in a policy under the municipality. That's all.
Yeah, I don't think it is.
No,
Yeah.
okay.
You're welcome. Anything further? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. That takes us to the Parks and Rec report, the Canada Healthy Communities Initiative Fund Grant. Mr. Miller, we've read this report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
I just need to highlight one date. It's the first intake. It is not May 9th. It is March 9th, which will be next week.
So don't dilly-dally is what you're saying.
That's the key. I'm working on it as we're
Thank you.
talking.
With that, I have a motion moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson. The council supports the application for funding on the new LED message board sign at the Codrington Park site to an amount of $25,000, fully funded through the Canada Healthy Communities Initiative Fund Grant Program. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. How's that for expeditious, Mr. Miller?
Thank you very much. It'll be in.
Get her done.
Move to our next report, which is titled MBBR project, but contains other wastewater pollution control plant initiatives and statements. So, Mr. Parkinson, having read this report, do you have anything to add or highlight?
I do, Your Worship. So I just wanted to highlight a few things. As everybody is aware, over the last 8 years or so, our wastewater treatment facility has experienced regular ammonia exceedances, and that led the MECP to issue us a compliance order to bring those exceedances under control. This issue has divided the community for a number of years now. Staff have spent the last 26 months working with consultants on the design, preparation of tender, issue of tender, and then evaluation of. The tender closed on November 12th, 2020. The lowest bid received of the 6 totals 10.3 million with the contingency added and the applicable taxes. We applied for grants. We were unsuccessful in receiving those grants from the Green Stream Fund. So to finance that 10.3 million, that comes at a cost of 702,000 for a 20-year term, and that's at a very low interest rate. The estimated operating cost for staff and utilities totals about an estimated 200,000 a year. So when you break that down, and I used my own personal water bills because I think I'm a fairly low user of the system, it equates to $280 a year, or a 67% increase in our wastewater charges alone. That's a lot of money for users to pay, especially in this climate. Over the last 2 years, we've spent a lot of time fostering a positive relationship with the MECP, and they're willing to work with us. The MECP understands that our system users can't afford this kind of increase. So they're going to work with us. They believe, as well as we do, that there's a more cost-effective solution to address our issues. So in the report, recommendation 2, the first recommendation is to cancel the tender due to the budget exceedance. Recommendation number 2 is to work with the MECP on a short-term, mid-term, and long-term plan. We will have to agree to those terms by way of issuance of a control document from the MECP, so that'll bind us to acting on a certain date on a certain level of project. And then if approved tonight, recommendation number 3 will be the wastewater model study that's already budgeted in the 2021 budget, but we're going to include a full infiltration evaluation, and we want to have that tender out by March 19th so that we can have it completed by hopefully midsummer. And the infiltration and inflow program will be based on the results of that modeling study and how we move forward. That's everything, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Mr. Parkinson. And with that, I have a motion moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson. The council directs staff to proceed with the following steps with respect to the MBBR tender and wastewater treatment system. 1, cancel the MBBR tender due to budget exceedances. 2, commit to the following program with the MECP, being short-term, increased aeration mixing capacity in both aeration cell and lagoon, spring 2021. Midterm, investigation of more suitable technology, summer 2022. And long-term, modified or new EA upon selection of suitable technology, considering future needs. 3, complete wastewater modeling study, including an infiltration evaluation to determine existing capacity and potential capacity gain within the system. And 4, aggressive infiltration and inflow program to recapture capacity in the treatment system. Is there any discussion? Councillor Bateman.
Just a couple of questions for clarification. With MECP saying they'll work with us, does that mean for any future, possible future exceedance, are they going to fine us or not fine us? Or while we're working towards something, we're not going to get fined if we do have any exceedance?
Mr. Parkinson.
Through Your Worship. That's correct. They will hold off on enforcement based on that control document they'll issue. If we go outside of that control document or void it in any way, then they would have the option to look at enforcement against the municipality.
Thank you, Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one question, Preston. Are you and your staff in the wastewater department confident that you can meet these commitments with the MECP?
Mr. Parkinson.
Through Your Worship. Yes, we are.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Just 2 questions, just to make sure that we're clear and everyone is clear. Do we still have, despite any of this, do we still have capacity in our wastewater plant, and will it continue to work well despite these ammonia exceedances? Is it doing what it's supposed to do despite this?
Mr. Parkinson.
I might tag team this with Jeff, but as far as the ability and the capacity, that's what we want to do the wastewater model study for. And planning is also working with the GIS team to determine, what our future needs are once the whole community is built out to the urban limit, and any future needs that we can identify.
Mr. Graham, if you push the lavender button in front of you now.
Got it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Laura, we're about 2/3 capacity in terms of hydraulics, and I don't think that's going to move up too quickly, especially if we can continue to get more infiltration out. We have really good success at the lagoons for treatment of everything but ammonia. The other big parameters, phosphorus solids and BOD, we have over 95% removal of those parameters, and we're well below the limits required by the MOE. Sorry, I may have not answered your question fully in my zest for getting my red button going here.
Deputy Mayor.
I think that's the answer I was looking for. I just want to assure everyone that by not doing this, we're not doing something, that's dangerous. This ammonia, it's not that the whole that the whole plant is not working properly. It's just these exceedances that we haven't been able to take care of. But we're looking at a new plan to do that. That we don't need to spend this $10 million in order to do that.
That's our hope. That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor LeBlanc. Microphone, please.
To the CAO. If we, through this, once we establish a sludge age, a return activated sludge, a waste, do you think we'll keep the ammonia under control if we keep the SVI, sludge volume index, so you can understand it, above 340 and where it should be in a normal activated sludge plant between 800 and 1400, do you believe that we would have an ammonia problem again?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm going to defer to Mr. Graham on that question.
Mr. Graham?
All we can really point at is empirical data because we don't really fit in a clean, typical design with what we're trying to do. But all last fall, we basically, for 2 months, for instance, like in September and October, we removed essentially 100% of the ammonia out of the wastewater in the aeration cell. And we did have feedback, though, of some ammonia in the lagoon. I think there's a reasonable chance if we increase our mixing energy in the aerated cell and still retain our solids in the aeration cell, we can achieve the limits we need to, which again are not extraordinarily low. We only have to be below 14 in the summer and 17 in the winter. And again, we were down coming out of the aeration cell at levels below 1 for many weeks in a row in the fall. I do think we are going to have challenges when it gets cold, and we saw that happen to us in December and in January. I have suggested to Preston a number of options for increased mixing that we're going to look at, and MECP does want us to submit a plan fairly soon for what options we're going to look at, the lower cost options. And I would hope that we could get some of those implemented in the next few months.
Follow up?
Do you believe the 5.5 day retention time that you have in the aeration pond compared to a normal activated sludge or mechanical system of less than 5 to 8 hours gives you a system to achieve your activated sludge concentration? Because
I'm going to say yes when everything works honky-dory perfectly. We've got, you're right, our tank you could say is 5 times as big as normal, which means that we, if our solids concentration are 1/5 the normal, we basically have the same amount of solids for the amount of wastewater that's coming in. It's proportional to a normal sewage plant. But devil's in the details, keeping those solids in suspension and retaining them in the aeration cell without a clarifier takes a bit of trick. And of course, we've talked about our decanting process where we let clear water out while keeping the solids in has normally worked, though cold weather, as we've experienced in the last 3 months, has been a bit of a challenge for us. And it would also be a potential challenge with the MBBR because it would receive extremely cold water from the end of the lagoon during the wintertime. The science would say, yes, it should work, but it still is a lingering concern with the MBBR treating water that comes out of the lagoon at basically 1 Celsius. Very, very cold.
Yeah. So, another question. So, the sludge age.
Sludge age, yes.
Which you need between 16 and 21 days for
Yes.
the activated sludge to work correctly. We can't control that right now.
If you were to decant 100% of the time, you would have very, very old sludge in your cell. So it would exceed the normal minimum sludge age MOE wants. And then at some point, it would be a blessing or a bonus for us if we actually wound up, we had too much, we had to waste some.
Yeah. I only have one more question.
I'm glad to hear it.
This is for the CEO. Through your chair, in the last council, in 2016, there was a resolution that was passed, basically requiring that any meeting that was done for the wastewater, that there would be a councillor present at those meetings when you met with the ministry at those times, and minutes of those meetings would be kept and would be presented to council. So since you've met with them a number of times, did you take minutes of those meetings? And was there a council present at that time? Because it was a resolution that was passed by council, the last council.
Mr. Castleman?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So firstly, not aware of that resolution from back in 2016. And certainly the meetings that have been held over the course of the last several months or few months have been comprised of staff members, including Mr. Graham.
Thank you. Could somebody remind me what the original price tag was coming out of the JL Richards report for the MBBR system? Was it in the $2.5 million range? Does that sound about right? And now we're looking at 4 times that. Mr. Graham, you have a comment?
I'm pretty sure the jail report had a a budget of 4 to 5 million for the SBR or the MBBR.
Are you sure that wasn't MBBR and force main?
I'd have to go back and check. I do remember. Yeah.
I think
No,
it was all in.
I don't think they ever said we could build the MBBR for 2 though.
I'll believe you for now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I just recall going into the whole process.
Regardless,
Hopefully.
we're more than double.
Yes, that's
We're more
correct.
than double.
Yeah.
Maybe close to 4 times
That's right.
if my numbers are correct. Just coming back, Mr. Parkinson, to your comment about the MECP being aware of what we're doing. Given that we do have a compliance order, I just want to be 100% certain that they're not just aware, but they are in full agreement and have endorsed what we're seeing before us today.
That is correct, Your Worship. And then our discussions will be mirrored in that document that they'll give us to commit us to the timeline.
Thank you. And will council see that document?
Yep. Yeah, we can circulate it. Absolutely.
Would appreciate that. Thank you. My final question is the 2/3 capacity noted. Does that include new builds that have not yet been built and occupied?
No, the 2/3 just strictly is the amount of the volume coming down the pipe last year. So if there's committed but unconnected homes, for instance, that will not include that.
So the 1/3 that does not include,
Mhm.
give or take, how many homes would that equal?
Well, my real back of the napkin estimate is, an average home produces about a half a cubic meter of sewage per day on average. And of course it would mirror your potable water use. So if you look at your potable water meters data from your water department and you picked 100 homes at random and you averaged them, I think you'd see the average consumption of water is about a half a cubic meter per dwelling unit, should equal to sewage. So, the real rough number is you add 1,000 homes to Brighton, you should produce about 500 cubic meters per day more of sewage, assuming all those brand new sewers to service those brand new subdivisions are installed right, tight, no infiltration, and roof leaders, sump pumps, and foundation drains are not connected. Right. Lots of ifs, lots of buts, but that would be my math, half a cubic meter per home, per new home.
So then now this really will be
Yeah.
my final question, because
Yeah.
that led me to this next
Yes.
question. Given that, we figure, I figure, I should say, that about 2.5 people come to each home we build in this
Mhm.
community.
Yep.
That's 2,500 new residents to the community.
Yes.
Given our growth rate, whether the province likes our growth rate or the county likes our growth rate or not, we could be at 25,000 new homes fairly quickly in
Yes.
this community, especially the pressures we've seen. So the long-term plan, final bullet point number 2, will that include suitable technology that considers growth over and above the existing capacity at the sewage treatment plant?
We haven't really got down in the weeds on that, but I would say anything we come up with for this, the next X years does not take us past the current capacity of 4,600. We're just trying to paper over and stay good up until that point. Because once you go over that point, 4,600, the MOE will definitely lower your ammonia limits.
Right. So that would be my question.
Yeah.
Is if if 1,000 new homes, 2,500 more people,
Yep.
and that builds out in a fairly quick amount of time
Right.
in this community, especially given the pressures we've seen over the last year. I would hope that our long-term plan would be one, and I'm talking the long-term vision here.
Yes. Yeah.
Would be one that we do see a significant lowering, because it is a more, without using the bad word, but it is a more mechanical in nature, a more mechanical treatment in nature.
Yeah. If I was to wildly speculate, when you go past 4,600, you either have to have the MBBR as a minimum, or you're probably going to be into the full mechanical plant at that point. But I've not really heard any projection when these next 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 homes might be built. I've just used 1,000 as an example. But if you did put 1,000 homes tomorrow on the ground, 2,500 new people, in round numbers, I think your flow would go from 3,000 cubes a day up to 3,500. And you'd still be well below 4,600 cubic meters per day of your capacity.
Understood.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Parkinson.
Just further to your question, Your Worship, the Director of Planning is working with our GIS person to look at those numbers for the 10, 15, and 20-year build out of Brighton. So to make sure, because we're going to have to pay for these items for a long time. So we want to make sure whatever we build will accommodate our future needs.
And I would assume that we want to make sure that whatever we build for the future is paid for by the residents that aren't here yet in terms of development charges.
Any portion that we can put towards development charges will be. That's correct.
Thank you. Councillor LeBlanc.
Chair, for the CEO, which he's probably going to pass on to Mr. Grant. CEO, what it is, with what our staff are doing now, with what they have, and how they've been decanting and everything because they don't have the proper equipment. The levels that I see coming out of the ammonia levels coming out of the activated sludge system is really low. Even if you went to 4,600 cubic meters and you could have your secondary clarifier reach your return, the levels would stay constant and low. We're not going to be at 14 or 15 for summer and winter. Even if they brought us at 7 and 8 with a proper activated sludge plant, the numbers are going to be below 1. So it's not a huge, it's not a scare tactic that they're going to lower the numbers. Even if they lower it with the proper numbers, you're going to be there because your activated sludge will take care of your ammonia. And this is what you've already proven by what the staff has done already presently by just getting proper mixing and aeration. The next step is to control your sludge age and your SVI.
I think what'll happen the next time you get a C of A for ammonia, they'll probably drop the summer limit from 14 down to probably like 2, and maybe the winter from 17 down to 4. So at that point, you've really got to have something really solid. We'd be really happy if we can just drop our average numbers from year round to say 4 to 8. But even that would be probably above the future limits. But right now, 4 to 8 would be fabulous if we can do it through some low cost solution. And that works out for you folks for the next 5, 10, 15 years as you stay under 4,600. I think that would be considered a huge win.
Thank you, Councillor Bateman.
Non-technical question, just for informational purposes. The new direction for the MBBR, if that's the way we go, there's been a lot of talk in the past about the lift station. So does this impact the plans and the needs for the lift station? If so, how would it impact it? Will it push that back, or does it have no bearing on it at all?
Mr. Parkinson.
Through your worship, it has no bearing on the pumping station project. And just so everybody's aware, we just completed the ECA application today. So the MECP will have that probably tomorrow from the consultant. And as soon as we have an idea when we'll be receiving that approval, then we'll be issuing the tender for construction this year.
Thank you for that. Is there anything further on the motion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. That takes us to the report with regard to document accessibility compliance. Mr. Street. Mr. Street, is he here? Ms. Doran, we've read Mr. Street's report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Not at this time.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Anderson, second by Councillor Bateman. The council received the report from the deputy clerk regarding document accessibility compliance, and that council approved the transfer of funds from the general reserves to contract the services of Able Docs. Is there any discussion? Councillor Rowley.
Just that we're dealing with a transfer again. This will have no impact on either this year's tax increase or any extra stress on taxes for 2021.
That's how I read it. Does anyone wish to chime in differently? No, we're good. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Just help me to understand. We're talking about our website. This came up at a committee as well about the sort of things that are on our website. How do we make it more accessible? What is it that we're trying to do?
That's what we're trying to do. So a lot of the documents that have been created and go onto the website have not been created properly for accessible reasons. So this service will help us do that. It'll help train people to how to create these documents properly, but they will actually create the document for us. And then it just pinpoints and shows you this area, this area, this area does not meet accessible standards. And then I'm not 100% sure, but Tom knows how to do all this stuff. There's a fancy little button, you push the button and it fixes it all for you.
This is about a fancy button.
It's
About a fancy button.
Sir,
fixes
it's
everything.
a service. It's a service and it's an app,
Okay.
basically. Yeah.
Okay, no, that helps. It was brought up at one of our committee meetings about,
Yeah.
and I just thought I'd get some more clarity.
We're not up to our standards at all. So we've had to take a lot of documents down. It'd be nice to be able to put those documents back up.
Yep.
And this service will help us do that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you provide an example to council of a document that may not be on the website right now?
All of our bylaws?
There you go. Thank you very much. Councillor Bateman.
I was just going to make the comment. I sit on the accessibility committee with Councillor Tadman and Tom, and you can pass along. Tom is amazing. His knowledge on this is just off the chart, and the way he can articulate it to people. So I have 100% confidence in what he's put here. Like, he's just amazing on that committee. Like, I don't think anybody on the committee could say anything different.
Thank you for
Got
that.
a lot of knowledge on this subject.
I hope you'll pass those comments on to Mr. Street. There you go. Anything further on the motion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Takes us to the report on the mobile canteen bylaw. Mr. McGee, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Not at this time.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Anderson, that council receives the staff report dated March 1st, 2021 regarding mobile canteens, and further that council repeals Bylaw 051-2020 and approves the recommended bylaw to license, regulate, and govern mobile canteens within the municipality of Brighton. Is there any discussion? Councillor Bateman.
I think I know the answer. I just want to maybe hear from my own ears. When we last met about this, there was an end date, I believe, in November. I think it is now the calendar year, December 31st. Am I correct?
Mr. McGee?
Through you, your worship. That's correct. I extended it back to the calendar year.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson?
I just want to be clear. When someone pays for the fee for a canteen or whatever, that's one fee for the whole year for the site?
Mr. McGee?
Through you, your worship. That's correct, Councillor Anderson.
So we do have special event fees, which range about the same amount as it costs to have a site for a year.
In this particular bylaw, there's no fees for special events.
No, but I'm saying that the municipality does have fees for special events, right?
Not that I'm aware of. That would be up to the special events committee.
Okay.
Some committees that have special events have fees, but this bylaw does not contain fees for special events.
Okay. I
Anything-
just find it interesting that there's one fee for a whole year. So, and if somebody wants it just for a one shot or a few days for an event, it would be different. Anyway, I'm just asking. Just seems pretty good deal to park on a municipal property for a year at $500 or something like that. But I guess we've been through that.
We have.
We've had that discussion, but I decided see. I'm still not clear on it, but all right.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. It mentions that there'll be no mobile canteens permitted within the Brighton BIA boundaries unless authorized by council. So or a special event, which obviously makes sense. So if someone comes along who wants to, what you're saying is that's going to come to council to decide first. Is that correct?
Through your worship, that's correct.
Unless it becomes onerous, and then we'll revisit the bylaw. Right? Sorry, Councillor LeBlanc.
through you, Chair, for Mr. McGee. So with this bylaw, nobody will be able to set up in Memorial Park unless coming in front of this council where our veterans are honored. Is that correct?
Through your worship, that's correct. That's why we have the DBIA boundary now put in place to prevent, not allow people to set up in Veterans Park or any kind of near the restaurant type idea.
Including Veterans Way. Yeah, thank you. Councillor Rowley.
I think that was what we had discussed a few years ago as well, is not to have anyone competing with the downtown businesses that might be selling the same kind of items unless it was a special event. That's,
That was my concern there.
Anything further from members of council? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. That takes us to the report on dog control services. Mr. McGee, we've read this report. Do you have anything to add or highlight, sir?
Not at this time.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor LeBlanc, seconded by Councillor Rowley, that council receives the report dated March 1st, 2021, a report regarding the dog control services and pound facility for the Municipality of Brighton, and that council authorizes the execution of an agreement with Pierce Animal Control for providing dog control services, and an agreement for the Quinte Humane Society as a municipal pound facility. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Next item on our agenda is the council follow-up list, and I have a motion moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by... I don't. But I will. No. Unless it's underneath. Oh, no, 10.1. Oh, there it is. There it is. I have a motion moved by Councillor Rowley, seconded by Councillor LeBlanc, that council receive the council follow-up list as information. Any discussion? Those in favor? Sorry, Councillor LeBlanc, did you have something to ask?
Some of these on this follow-up list, some of them are open-ended. And it doesn't say a percentage of completion, like are you 30% complete, 40% complete in your review or writing? Or should they be, like, are they open-ended for a year, 6 months? There should be a completion date or a follow-up date on something, or something that says your percentage complete, like a CPM chart.
So there would only be a completion date if council, through our motion, has directed staff to complete it on a certain date. Or if, in discussion afterward, staff have come to the conclusion that something should be completed by a specific date. But if our motions are open-ended, then the completion date would be open-ended. But Mr. Castleman, I'll get you to chime in on a percentage of completion or what have you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's exactly right. Council has asked staff to bring forward for their review the follow-up list on an ongoing basis. And I can assure you that each and every time that we have a senior staff meeting, we are looking at this list, and I am certainly prompting staff to bring forward items that are on this list. Do I want this list to be 5 pages long, 6 pages long? No. So we have our marching orders, and as priorities dictate, we deal with any outstanding requests that we have.
Anything further?
So, to me, through your chair, as a councillor, when I look at this, I would like to see that you worked on it 5%, 10%. There's a report coming. You've hired a consultant to do it, or there's going to be an end date, not 5 years or 6 years. Is there something, or should, when we do motions and we ask for you to come and report, should we put a specific time at that motion to have it done?
Mr. Councilman?
Well, certainly if council wants to bring forward motions or notices of motion and ask staff to turn their mind to any particular issue and ask for a report back within a specified period of time, that's certainly council's choice to do that. To date, we've chosen not to do that and left it up to the good judgment of staff to prioritize the outstanding issues and bring forward it in due course.
Councillor Bateman?
I just wanted to highlight one part on there, under the one section, Mr. Parkinson, know what I'm talking about. We adopted the tree program that you brought to our attention. I just wanted to let everybody know that I had forwarded Mr. Parkinson. I think I put Mr. Walsh on it as well, because I got an email from the Greenbelt Foundation, and there is a funding stream, and I think Preston, you said you guys were on it, where there's a portion in there for trees, shrubs, and natural vegetation. So that will coincide with Mr. Parkinson's project that he presented a few months back, I think.
Thank you for that. Councillor Rowley, did you have your hand up?
No, I'm going to withdraw my comment for
Thank you.
now. I think I'll send an email later. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Anything further on the follow-up list? Those in favor? Any opposed? There's none opposed. The motion's carried. Takes us to notice of motions and motions. We have one notice of motion this evening, which will be moved by Councillor Bateman and seconded by Councillor Tadman. Whereas Municipality of Brighton residents have a need to have their water and well water tested periodically on a regular basis. And whereas water sample drop-off for the health unit pickup was traditionally available within our municipality. And whereas a water sample testing drop-off is no longer available within the Municipality of Brighton, leaving residents having to drive to Port Hope and or outside our health unit to Quinte West. And whereas the Municipality of Brighton residents should have access to a water sample drop-off location within the Municipality of Brighton. Now therefore be it resolved that the Municipality of Brighton Council authorize staff to determine the best location between the municipal building at 35 Alice Street or the Public Works building at 67 Sharp and reinstate water sample pickup within the Municipality of Brighton. And that will come forward to our March 15th meeting as a motion. This takes us to unfinished business, which is the recommendation from the Committee of the Whole to Council to approve the 2021 budget as amended by the Committee of the Whole with a 2.31% tax increase. And the motion, you'll note, has been changed to refer to the levy rather than a tax increase, because the levy dollar value stays the same, whereas the tax increase may change based on assessment value. So it's moved by Councillor Bateman, seconded by Councillor Anderson. The Council, so this is an amendment. Council amend the deferred motion to reflect the tax levy of $9,831,740 and the approximate tax increase. Is there any discussion? Councillor Bateman.
Just for clarification, I thought I saw last week, I'm not even sure who sends them out, a municipality email that went out, those updates that go out, and it listed the increase at 1.89%. And I think that is seen by the public. I could probably try to find it again. It just went out last week, where it might have been a news story actually by, I think John Campbell wrote the news story on the Brighton Now, and it went out to the public listing the increase at 1.89, I believe, 1.69.
1.69.
And that caught my attention because we're here saying something that's completely different. So it's out in the public at
That might be the blended rate.
Yeah.
That might be the blended rate between the county,
Okay.
the education, the municipal. The total
Okay.
blended rate is in that
Okay.
range. So that might be what he was reporting on.
Maybe.
Is there anything further on this motion? Councillor Rowley?
Thank you. There again, just for a little bit of clarification as well regarding the conversation now around the tax levy. Because you talked also about assessment. So do we expect a change in that this year in order to make a change with this, Linda?
Ms. Whitfield?
Yes, so before the actual assessments came out, we were working with preliminary numbers. And then in November, in the last SUP of 2020, we received a new class, which is new multi-res. And so new multi-res has a different tax rate than other multi-res. That was part of the province's agenda in trying to create more homes. So new multi-res has a different tax rate. That created a shift in our assessment values. So when I did the final draft and I was putting numbers into our PowerPoint presentation, the assessment dollars had changed and that made the assessment or the percentage increase drop a bit. We're also anticipating another slight change in between classes if the tax ratios don't, or if the tax ratios change at the county.
Follow up?
Yes, so what that means is basically until we get our final tax bill, we might not know the complete change.
Once the tax ratios are set and the county has their tax rates set, then we'll have all of the information and we'll bring a tax rate bylaw to council.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Those in favor? Council, no, we're voting on the motion that recommends that we bring the budget forward. Okay, those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. Now we move into bylaws. Our only bylaw this evening is the 2021 budget bylaw, and I have a motion moved by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Bateman. The council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and passes on this date, being a bylaw to adopt the estimates for general purposes for the corporation of the Municipality of Brighton, year 2021. Is there any discussion? Already lots of discussion on the budget. I assume, Councillor LeBlanc, you'll be asking for a recorded vote. That's what you were trying to do before?
Yes, I will.
There it is. So if there's nothing further, Madam Clerk, Councillor LeBlanc has requested a recorded vote.
Councillor Doug LeBlanc,
Because we're taking money out of reserves for Telephone Road, I vote no.
Councillor Emily Rowley,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Laura Vink,
Yes.
Councillor Ron Anderson,
Yes.
Councillor Mark Bateman,
Yes.
Mayor Brian Ostrander,
Yes,
and it's carried.
thank you. Now I move into the consent agenda. This is where we lump a bunch of reports or minutes together for board meetings. So if there's anything you want debated out of this, you may ask for it to be separated out of this motion. I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Anderson. Be it resolved that the staff recommendation with respect to consent agenda items number 14.1 to 14.3 be adopted as printed. Is there any discussion? Councillor Rowley.
May I ask a question?
You may.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask a question to Councillor Bateman regarding the Lower Trent Conservation minutes, updates under item 12, backyard chicken bylaws. Why, if you could explain to me, why is Lower Trent looking at backyard chicken bylaws when we have just recently passed a bylaw, a chicken bylaw, backyard chicken bylaw? And if they need to pass the bylaws out, will that affect what bylaw that we have already just approved?
Councillor Bateman, any comment?
I think what they're looking at there is you would be able to encroach on sensitive lands, but I can verify with Rhonda.
That, but doesn't our bylaw already do that as well? Didn't we have that discussion regarding some of the shoreline residents and things? So would that override our bylaw then? Would they override us if we approved or disapproved, and then they could kind of challenge what we do?
I guess I don't know the answer to that question. Mr. Castleman?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, perhaps I'll defer to Mr. Walsh, who was the author of that report not so many weeks ago. I know that he's online with us.
Mr. Walsh, do you have any comment with regard to that question?
Yes, Mayor to Council, thank you. Yes, the bylaw did recognize that keeping of hens may be permitted in areas that are zoned environmental protection. In fact, Council may recall that the delegate who originally came before Council asking that we view our bylaw and consider permitting an expansion in the number of hens and in different locations than otherwise prescribed in the previous bylaw, that house did locate in an environmental protection zone, largely because it was in a floodplain and wave uprush area. It wasn't environmentally sensitive, say, in terms of threatened or endangered species or immediate water courses, that sort of thing. So the current backyard chicken bylaw does permit it to locate in areas where there is an existing home in what we call a non-conforming status of the bylaw. So it's considered an accessory use to a home where it's permitted. So I can only think in very, very rare occasions would we find that somehow a hen run or cage is going to somehow end up within 30 meters of a stream per se. And even if it were, I would think that there's lots of other birds within such areas that would have a much higher impact than 6 hens.
So I think I'll just repeat the other question that Councillor Rowley asked, which was which bylaw, if the Lower Trent were to pass one, which bylaw would supersede the local municipal bylaw or the Lower Trent's bylaw?
It would be the one of the highest constraints. So what would Lower Trent pass is probably a guidance interpretation of its regulations. So they don't pass bylaws per se, unless it's just a procedural bylaw on how to apply the regulations. So it would have to be the status of the regulations that would prevail over the zoning bylaw. And in those cases, it would only be limited to the scope of their legislation. So the regulations, of course, wouldn't be beyond what the legislation permits them to regulate. So it would have to be an area of flooding or other water feature.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Rowley?
A lot of explanation. Thank you, Paul, for some backyard chickens.
Welcome.
Thank you, everyone. Anything further coming out of the motion? Councillor LeBlanc?
The update from the county on their budget.
Yeah.
When it comes to taxes, when I look at their budget, you can probably answer this. 2 years ago, they were at 40.2 million, and now they're at 88.4. There's a $48.2 million increase, but there's only a $3 million increase on the taxes. Their grants are almost the same as what they got years before. But when you get the bag tags, tipping fees, and recycling, the cost is 6.6 million, and 2 years ago, it was about 3.1 million. So, but it only costs less than 3 million to run the wastewater treatment plant. I was just wondering why they're charging so much.
It costs a lot more than that to run, not wastewater treatment plant. You mean the actual
landfill.
waste? Yeah, it costs a lot more than that to run the waste department. I can get you those figures.
Yeah.
I have those in a presentation that was just given to us last month.
Does this include the plastic recycling plant?
The MRF?
Yes.
In Grafton?
Yes.
I don't know what you're pointing at, so I'm not sure. But the numbers I'll send you tomorrow or later this week will include that.
Okay.
Okay.
Because there's been quite a concern in the public about the bag tax.
Oh, I know. I've heard.
I'm glad you heard it. So have I.
I've heard. Unfortunately, no one can advise a better way to pay for waste management. Lots of people don't like bag tags, but the alternative is a significant tax increase. And County Council had given county staff a mandate of in the neighborhood of 1% or 1.5%, which the only way to get to that level was a 50-cent increase in bag tags.
So,
or other user fees.
It comes back to the question that a lot of citizens are trying to get answers from the county, and they're not. They're getting various answers to say, well, we'll send you to training. It's a service fee. It's a user fee. Some people said in one email, they said, if we didn't put the 50 cents, we would have to charge each person in the Northumberland County a tax increase of $7. Well, we don't tax individual, we tax property. So in that email, that was one of the, that's it at your table.
Sure.
So
I think that person probably meant the equivalent of $7 per person.
But when it comes to waste management, and this is a question that we brought up at the landfill, I know it's saying, we have assumed roads in the municipality of Brighton that our snow plows go on, and the garbage trucks will not go pick up the garbage. They make them travel 300 yards or 700 yards to bring everything to Highway 2 or County Road 64. In that contract with Miller, they were supposed to get smaller vehicles, because I attended the meeting, you voted on, you saw me in the thing. They were supposed to get smaller vehicles for all our unassumed roads and for our assumed roads. If our plows can go down the road, the garbage trucks would be going down there. The answers that the citizen did, and I brought it up to the CAO, I called them up, and the CAO contacted back the individuals. The county told them basically, too bad.
Well, that's an unfortunate response, regardless of whether the answer is yes or no. Too bad is an unfortunate response.
And the CAO worked very hard on it to get the answers back. And I
Yeah,
can vouch.
I would be, if you let me know what roads you're talking about, I would be pleased to take that to the Public Works Committee.
Yes.
I would be pleased to.
And remember the meeting, Mr. Councillor Bateman sent you one. I sent the other two to Adam, and they still haven't done anything. They said, we're not going to go.
I will follow up on that.
Because it's our citizens that are paying the tax.
I will follow up on that.
Thank you.
You bet. Anything further on the motion, Councillor Bateman?
Yeah, just a quick question. I don't expect you to have the answer tonight, but I was just wondering, under the community housing, is there an increase for the number of available units for our municipality? I think the only community housing we have, there's the units on Mead Street. Is there any others in Brighton?
The one, yeah, on Francis Court.
Yeah. Are we getting any more units available to Brighton, or is this an increase, just an overall cost?
I don't believe the county owns any land in Brighton on which to build, but that I would hope is something we can chat about during our strategic plan update in terms of our land inventory, because I do know that if the municipality had land on which the county could build, they would be happy to partner with the municipality for that kind of subsidized housing project. Happy to.
I was going to say, I'm sure I'm not the only one that has heard and seen that there's a need for it. Yeah.
Huge need. Yeah. Yeah. And it will be more and more so as rents go up and up, especially compared to incomes, which seem to stagnate. Anything further? Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, Mayor. It's not listed here on the updates from the county. However, I know we've been reading of late a bit regarding approximately $90 in development fees that will be shared all across the county, each municipality for the county. Can we have maybe a presentation or a little bit more information on that as it
I'm not sure what you're talking about, but I see the CAO has his hand up, so maybe he can fill in some blanks.
So through you, Mr. Chair, lots of great questions with respect to what's happening at the county. So we've reached out to county staff, CAO and treasurer, and are in the midst of scheduling them to come down and do a fulsome presentation to this council with respect to the overall budget. So we'll have an opportunity to ask any and all questions that we happen to have, whether it's bag tag fees or DCs or whatever other budgetary questions that you might have. So I've asked the clerk to schedule that meeting over the course of the next month or so. So there'll be a delegation before you in the near future.
The clerk advises they're coming in April. Deputy
That's
Mayor?
great.
Last few times they're here, I asked questions that they didn't have answers for. Are we maybe able as council, maybe not to pepper them, but maybe prepare some questions in advance so they actually have the answers when they come?
I think they probably appreciate that.
So maybe we can kind of get a reminder or who to address it to, or whether we send them to the clerk, or just maybe before the meeting, a couple weeks before the meeting, so that we can actually ask our questions in advance. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, will you please ensure that as soon as that's scheduled? Thank you. Thank you. Councillor
Very
LeBlanc.
good point, Deputy Mayor. I like that. I was going to put notice as a motion in to give our mayor marching orders to the county, but the question thing when they come is even better. One of those questions should be the Loomis Bridge, because it just got $4 million in bridge grants, and we're closing our bridge, which hurts us all the way along. That's one serious question that should be asked.
I'm sure you will be pleased to ask that question. Anything further on the motion? Those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. And that takes us to our closed session. Oh, pardon me. Madam Clerk, are you aware of anyone who's coming forward for question period? Thank you. Ms. Lambert, is there anyone on Zoom waiting to ask a question that you're aware of? Thank you. That takes us to our closed session meeting, and I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Vink, seconded by Councillor Anderson, that Council resolve itself into closed session March 1st, 2021 at 8:10 p.m. pursuant to the Ontario Municipal Act, RSO 2001 as amended, subsection 239(2)C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, Brighton Industrial Park purchase and sale update, and B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, staff council interactions, and CAO employment agreement. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. For those watching on YouTube, I will advise that council will be taking a 10-minute recess, and we will be ending the YouTube live stream. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see everyone else in the closed session. Thank you.